happening with Washington. It's yet to be seen. But I want to pull in one other factor that I think your listeners will be intrigued by, or at least give them some food for thought here, is what became to me sort of one of the ultimate reveals, if you will, that's in the dome of the Capitol. Washington, first let me say this, the Tibetans teach that this rainbow body teaching, this perfection of the human body into a being of light, this teaching did not come from Earth. They tell us that it's taught in 13 star systems in addition to our own. So when we're looking at the apotheosis and we're seeing Washington sitting there on a rainbow like a Christ-like being, we're thinking, okay, what's going on here? What's the message? And then you see those pagan gods around him, and you see, okay, the message is that this is about alchemy. This is about us transmuting the human element into light, preparatory to going through this stargate or wormhole and achieving ultimate liberation and freedom. But then you look at the 13 maidens that surround George Washington. They all have stars on their heads. And when you go to the Capitol, they'll tell you, oh yeah, those 13 maidens, those represent the 13 original colonies. But my thing was, well, how could that be? That's a heavenly scene. Washington isn't shown on Earth. He's up there in heaven. So how can those 13 maidens with stars on their heads be the colonies? And then I just made the connection. Wait a minute. Could those 13 maidens with stars on their heads represent the 13 other star systems where this great perfection, rainbow body teaching is taught? And if so, is it indicating that Earth, our star system, Sol, as it's called, is part of a federation, for lack of a better word, of star systems where this enlightenment teaching is taught? And is it now time for us, for this disclosure to happen, that we are a colony in a federation of star systems?
That's
and
an
that's
interesting take.
That's what I think is happening.
And how about some of the, like if we look at some of the symbols contained in the dome, we have one sitting to the right of Washington holding a fasci. What do you make of that, William?
Yeah, that's liberty. The fasci is a symbol that's been kind of passed around like a baton. It started out in Crete, where it was a symbol of the divine feminine, a symbol used by the goddess culture for divine transformation. It was the double-headed axe. They equated it with the butterfly, symbol of metamorphosis. Then Rome came along and turned it into a symbol of imperial power, Roman power. And I think that's one of the meanings that we're to get here in the U.S. Capitol, because Washington, D.C. was considered the new Rome. There is clearly an effort here to duplicate the temples of Rome in Washington, D.C. Yes. The United States Capitol and the Vatican are virtually mirror images of one another on the outside and on the interior. And so when we see that, we're thinking, okay, this is either a symbol of fascism or it's a symbol of transformation. And in this case, it seems to me to be more of a symbol of transformation. And I can say that because there, as we document in the book, there are a dozen or so examples of the goddess America painted, many by Brumidi, the Vatican painter who did the apotheosis. He painted numerous paintings of America throughout the Capitol where she is cradling the primary symbol of America, which is the caduceus, which on one level is a symbol of commerce, but on another level it's a symbol of transformation. And so I think that ultimately, I mean, you can look at this from the sort of the dark, negative control side, or you can say, well, these are all symbols of transformation, and I just prefer to look at them as symbols of transformation.
And then right across or above, depending on how you look at it, from Washington, below we have Mercury, as you mentioned as well. And one interpretation I heard from that is that he's holding a money bag. It's almost like, is he buying someone off, or is he giving them gold for a good job well done? Or what's your take on that, William?
Well, he's handing a Mercury, Hermes to the Greeks, Thoth to the Egyptians, is handing a bag of gold to Robert Morris, the financier of the American Revolution. And when I look at this, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that could be a payoff. There's something going on there. But then we look at it from the alchemical perspective and say, well, okay, mercury is the symbol for the alchemical transformation of lead into gold.
Mm.
I've been to Rennes-le-Château, France, a half a dozen times, and one of the things that I'm most curious about is the fact that both Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were in that area. Benjamin Franklin in particular was very interested in the mining operation the Knights Templar were running at a little place called Bézieux, which is right beside Rennes-le-Château. According to various Rennes-le-Château researchers, Bézieux was an alchemical foundry. The Knights Templar were there mining the alluvial gold that they could transmute into the white powder. And so I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, Benjamin Franklin's got a huge interest in alchemy. What kind of gold exactly is mercury handing over to Robert Morris?
Mm.
Could it be alchemical gold? Are they saying here that Benjamin Franklin discovered the secrets of the Templars at Rennes-le-Château in the vicinity and brought them back to America and they used them? Anything's possible here.
What if we tie this together with what we're seeing happening in America right now, and in one way even tying this together with Copenhagen and COP15 and potentially future conferences like this? The consensus now is that not only America, but also what they dub the global north, or the rich countries, are supposed to, pay up, as it were, in one sense. Do you see that what America is and what America has been, is that being lost right now? Is it being sold down the drain, or has it yet a purpose, if you will, to fulfill? What's your take on that, William?
Well, I think at the moment America is disintegrating. It clearly is. I think from the global elite kind of perspective, the American experiment is over with, something I'm not particularly happy about. I recognize that we have to bring balance into the world, but when we come back into the Capitol and we look at the original vision of America and this idea that we can transform, and if our assessment of this painting is correct, and what it's telling us is that Earth is part of a much larger collective, it changes our perspective, and it tells us that maybe at this time, when so many people do anticipate disclosure of our true extraterrestrial predicament, or the true nature of extraterrestrial involvement in earthly affairs, that maybe Washington, that the Capitol still can be that white mountain. What I tell people is that the U.S. Capitol is literally made, that dome is literally made of cast iron. It is a bell, and it can be rung. And further, the dome is modeled after the stupas of India. And the stupas were known to be vortex generators. I mean, the reason why the U.S. Capitol is a power place is because it was designed to be, just like the Vatican. And so the point I make is that 5 times a day, Muslims turn towards Mecca and pray to a black stone. It unifies them. It somehow gives them that sense of spiritual surety. And I tell people, especially in America, well, what would the effect be if, say, 3 times a day, people turned towards the U.S. Capitol dome and sent positive intentions and tried to raise the frequency of that dome, use the technology that's there, get it ringing, and begin to bring about a positive change where we're focused on not a one world controlling government in the end of America, but rather a government or a system that is more based on universal principles, universal spiritual principles, that is rooted in this idea that we are not consumers, but rather we are spiritual beings, and all of us are on a path right now of ascension. Mm. And I think that is kind of the crux of what has to happen right now. I mean, the whole world is being treated as if the only thing we're good for is to have the energy sucked out of us, and that's it.
Well, that's right. It's a good point. There's other things overall, I guess, weaved in the whole design and so forth. And we can go into the area of sacred geometry a little bit as well. Tell us what you found and what you talk about in your book in terms of sacred geometry and the Capitol Dome.
Well, we started with the recognition that the 5 pagan gods that Constantino Brumidi surrounded George